Okay, this thing is disgusting. Should I just throw it away? Stay tuned. Hey, this is Jason with Jadren Aquatics. Thanks for hanging out with me again. So you got a dirty sponge filter. Should you throw it away? No, you shouldn't throw it away. You need to just clean it. But how do you clean it? So this is kind of a controversial issue with a lot of different fish keepers because there's people that do it all different types of ways. I'm one of the ones that veer on the side of carefulness. I've got a friend who has had fish rooms for about 30 years, and he takes his sponge filters and he puts them directly into water out of the faucet that has chloramines in it. He completely cleans them out of there, squishes them all out, puts them back in the tank, and he never has any problem at all. And part of that reason is because in your aquarium, that bacteria that converts ammonia to nitrite to nitrate, that stuff exists everywhere. It's not just in your sponge filter, it's on all of your plants, whether they're real or plastic. It's in all of your substrate. It's on the glass. It's even in the water column. So just by removing that sponge filter doesn't mean you're removing all of the bacteria. You're only removing the amount that's in the sponge filter. Now granted, that's a very porous substance, so there's a tremendous amount of bacteria that is on that sponge. So I choose to be careful when I do it. So let's go ahead and let's move over to one of my aquariums and let's find out how I do it, how often I do it, because I don't do it often enough. And let's see just how it's done. Okay, so the first thing let's talk about is how often you should clean out your sponge filters. Now, I for one do not do it enough. I know I don't. It's part of a laziness, and I know I need to do it more often. I've got a friend who typically cleans his almost every single week. That seems extremely crazy to me, and a lot of it has to do with the amount of bioload that's actually on an aquarium also. But if you look in here, these are some of the signs that I actually look for. And so here's a 40 gallon, and if you look at this sponge filter over here, you can see the difference between that one and that one. That one has got a tremendous amount of stuff that's built up on it, and so this one over here is one that really needs cleaning, whereas this one right here seems to already look good, so it doesn't really need any cleaning. Another way that I notice when it needs to be cleaning is the amount of junk that I see floating around in the water column. I don't know if the camera is picking it up, but you can see a bunch of different things that are floating around in the water right now. So this one definitely needs to be clean over here. Another thing that I'll do sometimes is I'll stick my hand in there and I'll grab the sponge and I'll squeeze it a little bit. When these things get clogged, they get hard. So if it's just the least bit hard, I know that it's time to clean that sponge filter. So I can pretty much guarantee you that this one over here is probably pretty hard. So let's go ahead and let's figure out exactly how Jason does his sponge filter cleaning. Okay, so the first thing that I decide to do whenever I decide to clean one of the sponge filters is I do a little bit of a water change. And so I will take my siphon hose and I'll siphon out the gravel some, and that way I can take a 5-gallon bucket and I can fill it about halfway full, and then that'll be the water that I'll actually use in the bucket to clean the sponge filter out. So I wash off all of my sponge filters in the actual tank water that it came out of. Again, it's because I choose to do it a very careful way. So let's go ahead and let's clean out some of the water into the 5-gallon bucket, and let's get that sponge out and get that thing clean. Okay, so we got our 5-gallon bucket here. We've got our siphon hose. So we're gonna go ahead and do some gravel cleaning. Alright, so we're going to gravel vac, and we're going to do it till we get this 5-gallon bucket probably about full. We're just going to go ahead and grab this dirty filter, and as you can see, there's detritus and stuff everywhere. And what I do is I just pop the air stone part out because it's the easiest way to separate it. And so the air stone still stays in there, but then I just remove the sponge filter so I can take it out and clean it. So let's go ahead and move over here and clean it. Okay, so we've got the sponge here, and as you can see, this thing is just full of gunk. It's hard, like I was telling you, so it definitely needs to be cleaned. So the first thing I want to do is take it apart, pull this out, because that's pretty clean. We don't need to do anything to it. So all I'm going to do is just take it and just squish this thing out and shoot it on the water, on the floor. That's the good part about having it in the garage. It's not a big deal if we put it in the garage. And the most important part is that you have your puppy dog here to help you out, because she knows exactly what to do. So I just take it and I keep squeezing it out, and again, we're just using it in this tank water. And I know that the tank water is already dirty, but I'm just trying to get the majority of it out. And again, I worry more about killing a lot of the bacteria off. And that's part of the reason whenever I remove a sponge from like a 40 gallon, I only take one of them out at a time and leave the other one. So I'll do this 5 or 6 times. You can feel when the sponge begins to be, when it's ready, because a lot of that slime is gone and that hardness that's in it is no longer there. And so once you do this, get it all as clean as you possibly can in this dirty water. Then we just simply put the thing back together again. And then we throw it back in the tank. And then you're done with that sponge filter. So there you go. There is how Jason cleans his sponge filters. It's not the way that everyone does it. It's just the way that I feel safest doing it. So I would love to hear from you guys down below. How do you clean your sponge filters? Or how do you clean your canisters or your hang on the back filters? And how often do you do it? Would love to hear some of you guys that have been doing this way longer than I have. So if you got any questions or comments, be sure and leave those down below. So thanks again, guys, and God bless.